Hey guys, Bart from TST Industries here. Welcome to TST Garage. Today in the studio we have 2018 Kawasaki Ninja 400 and we'll be showing you the installation of our new Elite-1 Fender Eliminator on that bike. We've already released the standard Fender Eliminator, which is a very basic part. We have some videos showing you how to tear down the OEM Fender setup, install that guy on there, and also a different video showing you how to install the signals along with those components. Now, what's so special about these parts? Why did we go ahead and make an upgraded version? Well, when you install the standard Fender Eliminator, you still retain some of the holes left behind by your fender. So for that purpose, we've designed this nice CNC machined aluminum undertail closeout that will close out all those holes. That is the base component for both of these variants you see here. One of these variants is basically the standard Fender Eliminator bracket attached to the closeout. This will close out your holes, make the bike look very cosmetically pleasing, and give you the ability to remount your license plate and subsequently license plate light and also your signals. Now, if you're interested in top of the line components, I recommend that you go with our adjustable Elite-1 Fender Eliminator setup. Features the same undertail closeout, but it has an upgraded bracket system that enables adjustability of the angle of the plate. All these components are CNC machined aluminum, black anodized, really nice finish, durable, and they also feature all stainless steel corrosion resistant hardware. So the base component of these two products is the closeout. Here you can see it in its raw form before we anodize it. It's got some really nice features cut into it. It really complements the lines of the bike, closes out the holes, makes your bike more resistant to water entry. The center hole here is for the purpose of running wires into your undertail. You will need that hole to pass your signal wires or your license plate light wire or both. But if you're not using that kind of setup on your bike for some reason, we do provide an extra piece of hardware that will close that out and will make it completely sealed. These setups do not come with a license plate light by default. That is up to you. We do have a really nice low profile setup that goes with all of our Fender Eliminator systems, so I highly recommend that you pick that up along with these systems. These also do not provide any sort of signaling components. Those are also sold separately because we have a bunch of different kinds. We're also going to be releasing our integrated taillight for this bike later this year. So if you want to get updates on that, please head on over to tstindustries.com and sign up for our newsletter. All right, so let's jump on over to the bike and perform this assembly. All right, so for this video, we're going to pick up the steps from where we left off after the fender disassembly in our standard Fender Eliminator video. If you want to reference those parts, I suggest you watch our standard Fender Eliminator instructions. So the fender comes off, it looks like that. Leaves your undertail with this nub sticking out. This is a channel for routing your wires. Obviously, our closeout will not fit over that. We did not want to compromise the aesthetics of this setup, so we decided that there will be a necessary step involving cutting this out, and that will provide you with a much nicer and cleaner looking undertail. If you're not comfortable doing this, I suggest that you go with our standard setup. It'll still do what this setup does. It just won't look as nice and it won't close out the holes. So for the next step, I will be using a really sharp brand new blade. You can do this with a host of other tools like a Dremel or something like that. I typically like to cut polypropylene parts with a blade because that's just my preference. So I will go very, very slow and be patient, always cutting away from any body parts. And I will first establish a cut line that is just notched in there, and then go deeper and deeper, and then finally slice it off. So once you cut through and penetrate on the three sides here, you can actually deflect this guy down and continue from the inside. That will make it much easier. And then that comes off. We can clean up the edge. Make sure you remove all the burrs and make a very nice appearance. Even though you don't see it, once everything's mounted, you can see it from the inside. So for a nice professional installation, I like to clean all these edges up. All right, so now we have all of that taken off and the surface is nice and clean for us to apply the undertail closeout to. I'll just size it up with the raw one. We'll proceed with the assembly using one of our anodized pieces. The first consideration here we'll make is whether or not we're passing any wires into the inside of the bike. For our installation purposes, we will block this off. If you're running signals, like I said in the intro, you will leave this open. So we provide this little countersunk screw that goes in here. It's capped off with a M5 locking nut from the top. And I will use an 8mm box wrench and a 3mm Allen key to get this assembled. Just bottom this out, and now we're ready to rock. All right, so the first installation I'll show you guys is our fixed Fender Eliminator. This is the simplest form of the Elite-1. Comes with a bunch of hardware. We'll stack one of the small washers provided on the screw, pass it through the underside of the bracket, pass it through the closeout, and into the rearmost holes on our undertail. On top of that, we will stack a larger washer and one of our locking nuts. And we will repeat this on the other side. To tighten this connection down, I will be using a 10mm socket from the top on the nuts and a 4mm Allen on the bottom. I'm going to get the screw close to bottom out, but I will leave some adjustability so that we can configure this whole system in the correct place. Now that we're close to bottom out, we can make sure that our closeout follows the lines of the motorcycle. So I like to pull it towards the rear as far as it'll go. Then I will also center the license bracket. And now I will take that to full bottom out. And that's pretty much it. From this point forward is just mounting the license plate and any auxiliary components that go on this setup, like our signals or license plate light. I will now tear this down and show you the adjustable setup. That's a little bit more involved, but still fairly easy. So now onto our adjustable setup installation. We will begin by getting one of these longer screws from our parts kit and the large washer, stack them, and for this part it will be necessary to apply a little bit of thread locking compound. I recommend blue. You really only need just a little dab on the very end. And now we will penetrate the rearmost hole and repeat the procedure on the other side. Now we will grab our undertail closeout, superimpose it over those screws, get it bottomed out against the undertail, and select one of these hinge bosses that come with the adjustable setup. And while holding one of the screws from up top, I'll thread that on. Once we get down about 5mm of the way, we'll let it hang, and we will keep the hinge boss in this orientation. As you can see, one side's flatter and one side's got a little bit of a swoop geometry to it. The swooping geometry will face the rear. Repeat the steps on the other side. Now I'm going to use 4mm Allen from the top. And while I hold my hinge boss, I'll get them snugged up a little bit, still maintaining some adjustability. And now before I tighten those down, just like with the previous segment we showed you on the standard fixed setup, we'll make sure that all the body lines align with our closeout. And then using a 10mm open-ended wrench, we'll hold these hinge bosses so that they're parallel to the center plane of the bike and get them tightened down all the way. It's very important to get them close to parallel to the center plane of the bike because that will ensure that the hinge for the subsequent brackets that go on here works properly. So if you're off by 1/2 degree to a degree, you're fine. Components will flex in place, but if you're at a wild angle, this won't work very well. So the next step will be to get these brackets, and for this particular setup, you need to configure them in this shape, in this configuration. It will be angled like this towards the rear, and then we'll go in this sequence. Grab a washer and one of the small 6mm screws. Apply a little bit of Loctite and get that threaded in. This is also a fastener that requires the 4mm Allen. I'll just get it seated, but not tighten it down all the way. I'm gonna repeat the steps on this side. I'm just gonna do the Loctite step ahead of time. One important thing to note is that these brackets have a hole large enough to fit on a shoulder that protrudes from the hinge boss. You want to make sure that that engages, otherwise it'll just clamp the bracket onto the hinge boss and won't work very well. So, theory of operation here is you loosen these screws and this mechanism enables adjustability, then you lock them down and they're good to go. You will not need the Loctite past this point. The rest of the fasteners have locking components. So the big flat bracket that holds your license plate on the bike will go here. Grab one of these small M5 countersunk screws, get it through the innermost hole, and this gets fastened by one of these M5 locking nuts from the rear. Same location on the other side. This connection requires the use of a 3mm Allen and an 8mm box or open-ended wrench. I'll get these guys seated. Now I'm going to place my bracket system at an arbitrary angle here and tighten down on one of the sides. This will enable me to put on my license plate and then move forward. And that's pretty much it, other than maybe adjusting the license plate angle a little bit more. So you have this whole broad range of adjustment. I highly recommend keeping it back, especially if you live outside of the United States and have a really big license plate. You're gonna have to make sure that your tire doesn't contact it. This angle looks pretty good to me, so I'm going to lock it down here and go to full tightness on it. So that's it in a gist. If you're mounting any aftermarket signaling components on this, we do have a couple different options. There's our bleed type signal. They really complement the bike really well. We have mounting systems that go together with all our other components. If you're holding out for the integrated taillight, that will come later this year. Let's replace the rear seat, and this installation will be over. Just a couple minutes. The system really speaks for itself. It produces really nice results. It's very low profile and closes out the hole left behind by the fender. It's a really nice system. I'm really proud of it. If you're interested in getting more information about this product, please visit us at tstindustries.com. Other than that, I'm done. Ride safe. See you guys later.